Thank you, Millie, so much. So just imagine that the state of Missouri is invaded by a foreign country. That in here come armed guards. That your homes are burned, and that 1 out of 5 of you sitting in this room is tortured and killed. And that some of you maybe escape and go to a foreign country where you live and have to learn to speak another language. Where you live and for 50 years you yearn to return home. That is the situation with the Tibetan monks that were here. I look at them and I look at the peace and loving kindness and compassion that seems to just radiate out from them. And knowing their situation, I look at my own and say, what on earth have I got to worry about? We live in an uncertain world, and yet we are constantly hoping and wishing for certainty. There was an article written that said, well, something's really special about this time. It's really unusually uncertain right now. Technology and industry is changing the way we work and live and pray in our families, and everything seems to be falling apart and chaotic. And this article that was written was from 1951. And it was Alan Watts talking about the early 50s and saying, surely this time is unusually uncertain. And yet now, don't we think that about our own time? Doesn't it seem like that there's something special, something particularly uncertain, and yet it might just be that uncertainty is part of the human condition. That we are constantly trying to get ground under our feet and things just continue to happen that shake our confidence. You know, something as simple as, what's the best food to eat? It seems like there's research out every week that tells us something's really, really good for us. Like, aren't you trying to find like that super fruit that has like the most antioxidants, so you only have to eat one a day and then you're like all done? My dad had a heart condition and my mother was a registered nurse. And so she read every single report on what you were supposed to feed a person that had a heart condition. And so a report came out that said, eggs are bad. So my dad no longer was allowed to have eggs. And then there was a report that came out that said, oh, eggs are good, it's okay. So then my dad got to have eggs again. And then there was a report that came out that said eggs are like a little bad, but not so good, but you could have a couple. My dad was on the roller coaster of diet do's and don'ts. But isn't that kind of like what we do in life? We're constantly just trying to find that ground that we can stand on, that we can be certain about, that we know for sure exactly what's going to happen in the future. There's a wonderful saying by Francisco Goldman, and he says, destiny is mysterious, that sometimes a miracle is wrapped in a leaky basket of catastrophe. And so it's encouraging us to look at those ways that we might be able to not only get comfortable with uncertainty, but actually embrace it. To think about those things in your life that you feel uncomfortable about, that are giving you that sense of, I don't have peace in my life, and what could you find that might be the exact thing that you're looking for. There's a wonderful Zen phrase that says, Barn burned down. Now I can see the moon. We can look for those things that we think are the worst possible thing that can happen to us, and we can find the pony amid it. It is amazing. There was an article, in fact, I read. There was an interview by a woman in Joplin, Missouri, where the terrible tornado was. And she had lost everything. And you would think, what more could happen to this poor woman? And yet she was interviewed, and she said, you know what? I got nothing to lose. She says, suddenly I feel liberated. Heck, if I can live through this, I can live through anything. And so there's that sense of, even in the chaos, even through the uncertainty, that's the place where we can find what we're truly made of. And that we really don't have to know all the answers. We don't have to know. In fact, I remember there was a Buddhist teacher here, Lama Surya Das, that was talking about Buddhism, and there was a man sitting right over there, and he stood up and had to ask this question. He said, I'm practicing Buddhism, and my family are fundamentalist. Every day they're trying to save me. They tell me I'm going to hell. I am so sick and tired of listening to them. What can I say to them to make them stop? And the Buddhist teacher said, maybe they're right. We'll all find out, won't we? So there's this opportunity to have don't know mind. I don't know. It's okay to say, I'm not sure. In fact, in the Jain religion, there's a special word for this. It's called syat, S-Y-A-T. And it's the greatest caveat in the world. It means, at this time, maybe, not for sure, as far as I know, I'm not going to be held to it, but just in case, I think it might be. Syat. That we can embrace the sense that we don't know. And from that sense of not knowing, then the world starts to open up to us. We could imagine even talking to someone who we fervently disagree with and actually asking them the question, will you tell me more? I want to better understand what your position is. And imagine the sense of peace that could come from being willing to say that you don't know. Wayne Dyer is one of my favorite writers as well, and he has a wonderful little saying that says, would you rather be right or would you rather be kind? And sometimes those two are mutually exclusive. And we can have that choice within ourselves to decide, are we willing to admit that maybe we don't have all the answers? And there's another thing when we talk about peace. There's a wonderful book, Susan Jeffers wrote it, and it says, Embracing Uncertainty, Achieving Peace of Mind in the Face of the Unknown. And one of the things she talks about in there is the way we set expectations on ourselves. We expect life to be a certain way. Anybody remember being 18 years old? There may be some 18-year-olds still. We'll ask you how you're feeling in this moment. But remember being 18 years old and you just felt like you knew what life was going to be about. You had expectations. What did you think about when you were 18? What was your life going to be about? Did it work out exactly that way for anybody? It's this opportunity that we have to let go of expectations. And in fact, I'm going to argue, remember the movie a while back called The Secret? I was talking about you just need to, if you want a red car, you need to be thinking about that red car. Don't be thinking about any blue cars. You be thinking about a red car, and that's how you get what you want. Well, there's a wonderful little addendum to any prayer that we might say that Unity adds on, and I love this. And it always is the prayer of this or something better. And imagine that even your wildest expectations, that things could be even better than you could possibly dream up on your own. And that's the opportunity of letting go of expectations and being willing to ride the wave of life. So what are some of the other ways that we can practice finding this peace within ourselves instead of looking for it externally? There's that meditation, the sitting in the silence, that we all know that helps. And Deepak Chopra says something really wonderful about that. He says that the divine psyche whispers to us in the gaps between our thoughts. So as we go into the silence later, we can think about that opportunity that we can let go and let God. This concept of God can be somewhat challenging. Many of us grew up with this idea of something external to ourselves. But in Unity, we're encouraged to start thinking about that God within, that incredible power and strength that you have within you to manifest this amazing life. And I would even offer that we could go back to the Bible and look for the messages of peace instead of the messages of punishment. And okay, I have to read this thing. Hang on. So there was a national radio personality who will remain nameless, who was using the Bible as punishment, was taking it literally and specifically quoting a particular scripture to say that homosexuality was a sin. And so there was a gentleman that took it upon himself to write a letter to this particular person. And he said, "Thank you for doing so much to educate people regarding God's law. I have learned a great deal from your radio show, and I am trying to share that knowledge with as many people as I can. When someone tries to defend homosexuality, I simply remind them of Leviticus 18:22 that says it's a sin. End of debate. You know what? There's just one more piece of advice I need from you. There's some other specific Bible verses I'm kind of struggling with that I thought you might be able to help me with. Like in Exodus 21:7, you know, I would like to sell my daughter in slavery." Exodus 21:7 says that's okay. Now, I just had a couple of questions. She's 18, she's going off to college. Does the slave owner pay for her college? Or do I still pay for her college? How does that all work? I'm just asking. It gets better. Leviticus 21:20 states that I may not approach the altar of God if I have a defect in my sight. Now, I have to admit that I wear reading glasses, he said. Does my vision have to be 20/20? Do contacts count? Is there any wiggle room in this particular scripture? And then lastly, I got this really one big problem. My male friends are getting their hair trimmed. They are even trimming the hair around their temples, although it is specifically forbidden in Leviticus 19:27. So I would like to ask your opinion. What is the specific way that I should kill them? Signed, sincerely, your friend.